What would you like him to do?
I would like him to go to the people of the United States of America and say, people of the United States of America, your Congress is bought. Your Congress is incapable of making legislation on health care, banking, trade, or taxes, because if they do it, they will lose their political funding, and they won't do it.
Former MSNBC host Dylan Ratigan is running for Congress in New York's 21st District, which is currently represented by Republican Elise Stefanik. Now, Ratigan left MSNBC in 2012 to start a hydroponic farming company. But when he was on MSNBC, he was one of those few sane voices, talking about issues like money in politics and the effects of the big banks on politicians. And while he's running as a Democrat in this race, I'm going to show you a clip in a minute that shows you he's not... he's more focused on running as Dylan Ratigan from his district, as opposed to, running as a Democrat. The Democrat part is really just because of you have to pick a party to run as. If he ran as an independent, it would be a lot harder for him to win a race. But because Ratigan has the name recognition that very few progressives have, somebody that was actually on television for a few years, has thousands of hours of airtime of him debating politicians on MSNBC, and has a history of fighting for issues that actually that people actually care about, like money in politics. I think this is going to be one of the big races to watch in the midterms, because I actually think Dylan Ratigan has a shot here. So the incumbent apparently is popular, or at least right now has high numbers. But when you have somebody like Ratigan, who has the name recognition, who is riding this wave of this anger and resentment against the Republican Party and against Trump, it's going to give him the ability to unseat this Republican, who I think I'm saying her name right, Elise Stefanik, but you get it. So here's Dylan Ratigan's website and what he says on it. Let's face it, the political class has built a corrupt system that rewards themselves. They do just enough to get reelected and reward their donors. And instead of finding common ground, they hide behind partisanship and stalemate. No real plan for jobs, no solution for the opioid epidemic, no honest solutions for healthcare. The North Country is fiercely independent. They call it how they see it, and they want a representative who will do the same, to bring honesty to our government and progress for our people. Now, Ratigan live streamed his launch for Congress on Facebook, and I put together a few clips from that.
I will be running as a potential candidate in the Democratic Party primary, but at the end of the day, I will be running as Dylan Ratigan from Saranac Lake for every single person in the district. The single largest voting bloc in America, by almost 2-to-1, is people who don't vote. You want to know why not? Because it's apathy, they don't, no. It's because they're disgusted. But the indulgence of our disgust with the lack of seriousness in American government and the lack of leadership in American government is no longer something we can afford to indulge.
So if you can't tell, I'm pretty excited about this run. I think Ratigan has the perfect mix of charisma, honesty, a genuine understanding of how broken the political system is, and how not just apathetic, but how angry people are at how the system is structured. How there are really these two false choices, where both candidates are being propped up by big donors and big money in general, and that they don't actually represent the vast majority of people. He knows this. So just on that alone, even though we don't have a full platform or really any idea of exactly what he wants to push policy-wise, because he understands that the system is broken. And he has a history of fighting that on television, a history of discussing how these politicians are bought off. Because he has this, and he has the name recognition to go with it, I think he has a really good shot at winning this race. So we're going to see. Again, I don't know much about his opponent, But it's going to be hard for him, or for the Republican, even though she's an incumbent. I think it's going to be hard for her to match up to this. I'm just imagining debates. I mean, hopefully these debates are televised and we get some clips out of it, because anytime Dylan Ratigan speaks to a camera, it's worth watching. And actually, because of that, I put together a bunch of clips from Dylan Ratigan videos in the past, and I'm just going to end on that.
What did you think of Bernie Sanders as a candidate, and do you think he would have had a shot had he
I think Bernie
barely
would have
had a chance to
destroyed Donald
win the
Trump.
Really?
I believe Bernie Sanders would have just, again, I believe that the Donald Trump voters, I believe half of the Donald Trump voters were people who were voting against the establishment, and Donald Trump was the only choice they had to do that.
There is a small group of well-funded Wahhabi extremists funded by the Saudi Arabian government to whom we give money. Listen, you invite me on the show, that's what's going to happen, okay? So there's American oil money and American guns to the Saudi Arabian government. Those guns, that money, to Wahhabi extremist Muslims in Saudi Arabia. The only ones who have ever killed us, them. Goldman Sachs makes a minuscule percentage of their revenue actually helping anybody raise capital. Their massive profits come mainly from what's called proprietary trading, which, if you're not familiar with Wall Street terms, is most similar to betting on football games. In their case, they keep all the winnings using taxpayer money to place their bets, and we pay the multi-trillion-dollar losses. The more Goldman bets, the bigger the bonuses are, and the more you have to pay. They hide behind the language of capitalism in order to perpetrate the theft. Everybody can see that this is happening. Everybody can see that it is a massive bank theft perpetrated with taxpayer subsidies, and yet the CEO of Goldman Sachs over the weekend out claiming he's doing God's work.
It is about one guy.
It is about one guy.
What would you like him to do?
I would like him to go to the people of the United States of America and say, people of the United States of America, your Congress is bought. Your Congress is incapable of making legislation on health care, banking, trade, or taxes, because if they do it, they will lose their political funding, and they won't do it. But I'm the President of the United States, and I won't have a country that is run by a bought Congress. So I'm not going to work with a bought Congress and try to be Mr. Big Guy. I'm working with the bought Congress. I'm going to abandon the bought Congress like Teddy Roosevelt did, and I'm going to go to the people of the United States and I'm going to say, you've got a bought Congress. And until we get rid of the bought Congress, which is Jimmy Williams' constant point, which is get the money out of politics, and until a president says that's the problem and says he's going to fix it, there is no policy that I can possibly see, no matter how brilliant your idea may be, or your idea, or my idea, or her idea, or your idea at home, is that idea will not happen as long as there's the capacity to basically fire a politician who disagrees with me by taking funding away from him. Is that a fair assessment?
Hey, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button below and consider throwing me a few bucks on Patreon at patreon.com/therationalnational or therationalnational.com/join.